Oh my God, it is the first episode of my second season, which is wild. I still don't think I've wrapped my brain around the fact that I have a podcast, but we're doing things differently this season, and I'm so excited about it. The first thing is I'm really trying to let go of my phone, just so you guys know. So I do have my little notebook. I'm just going to share that. But also, we are in Golden Hour, which is my new workspace. So hopefully the lighting is on point, and I have a team. So a lot has changed since this first season, and I really appreciate all of the support that I've received so far. Every follow, DM, etc. Nothing goes unnoticed, and we've taken all the feedback on to create an amazing season and an amazing year ahead. So I thought the best way to kick off the year is to really talk about marketing trends that I am seeing for 2026. Some of these things are going to be things that you've heard about, not because they're not original, but because I agree with it. And some of these things are going to be things that I just feel. It's my gut feeling. And I think that's the hardest thing about working in this industry is there are some things that are just going to be gut feeling and you have to run with it. So if you're a founder that has a gut feeling or you're an employee that has a gut feeling, try to trust your intuition, because more often than not, there's a little bit of a nugget of truth in that. And I've learned that over the last 15 years. So let's just start off with the first one, which is the one that everybody's already spoken about. 2026 is the return of long form content. Now, everyone's talking about this. I can't think of a single marketing expert or social media specialist or anything that's not speaking about this. I think that there's a couple psychological and economical reasons behind it. I think this is actually a really big recession indicator. If you think about the times that YouTube has really thrived or long form content has thrived, it's because we were sitting at home and we were consuming, and we needed to consume in longer formats. So I actually went to America over Christmas for a couple of weeks, and I really was able to see the way that YouTube is being used in the US. And, the US is controversial at the moment, but no matter what, from a consumer level, they are always going to be a couple steps ahead of Australia. And it was interesting to see the amount of people who were exclusively watching YouTube, which I don't think is something that I'm really exposed to in my social circle or in my life. And you'll notice that If You Know You Grow now has a YouTube channel, and that is a strategic move because I want to be accessible anywhere that somebody is accessible. There's also creators who are starting to bring out brand content and longer form content, and it is more documentary style. I think the really scripted behind the scenes for brands is going to start to die, and that's because the market became oversaturated with it, and consumers are never gonna, they're never dumb. They get it. So it is a big investment and it is a big shift, but I've worked with many YouTubers, and the interesting thing about YouTube and the interesting thing about long form content is you may not see this instant win, but you see the highest level of engagement with long form content because you will see not only retroactivity from a revenue and an engagement side, but you also have somebody who is willing to listen, watch, and absorb whatever you're talking about for a 15, 20, 25-minute period. And there's so much power in that because it's very easy to get someone to consume something for 15 seconds. That's actually not that hard. But you're not telling a story, you're not adding value, you're not giving anything to somebody. And when I talk about it being a recession indicator, a lot of these trends actually speak to a recession indicator. No matter what, no one can argue that 2025 was a really interesting year. It wasn't a tough year for everybody, but it was a tough year for brands. And it was a tough year for people who were refusing to do things differently or who were expecting the same year-on-year results just because they bought more stock or they scaled their spend, right? You have to move different in order to get the result that you want. So I would highly encourage you to start thinking about what can long form content mean for you. I've watched this happen with Kakiva, which is a viral activewear brand. If you haven't seen them, I've seen their founder do this really, really well. This is also something that Grace Beverly does really, really well. And it's interesting because Grace Beverly is somebody who, if you don't follow her, I encourage you to follow her. But she is someone who has documented so much of her life so well and actually has brands that, yes, they feed into each other, but they're actually all very different in terms of the type of person that they target. And when you're thinking about revenue streams, she's really nailed this. Like, I have no, I guess, quantifiable anything that I can share, but it's somebody who is doing it really well and her content's really engaging. And as platforms start moving to wanting more long form content, so I think like two things, like Netflix is starting to get into podcasts. So that's going to be really interesting. Again, a long form content style. And you also have Stephen Bartlett, who just had, I believe it was like a $400 million for Diary of a CEO. And he's like now building this empire. Businesses who have more data points than we could ever dream for are investing in long form content. Neither of those are the YouTube shorts of the world. There's still a place for TikTok, but it just means you need to differentiate your strategy in order to really engage and grow community. And the trend of community is not going to go anywhere. The next trend that I see is actually the micro moment. I think that this is a twofold trend. One, it's because brands aren't going to have the amount of money that they're going to have to splash at random stuff and just throw shit against the wall, right? Building brand equity and investing your brand is something that's so critical. And if you're not doing it, then you're doing yourself a disservice. But you need to be able to create micro moments and value engagement on a smaller level. So this is valuing the comments, this is valuing the DMs, but this is also investing in little tiny things that will help build community that actually don't cost anything. Damalisa is a creator in the industry that I recommend you following, but she's really established the micro moments. She just started like a hot girl walk club, and then that went into her journals, which has then gone into a collaboration with a huge online fitness platform. And in terms of someone that I'm watching and someone that's on my list to collaborate with, Dom is one of those people because she's done it really well. It doesn't take a lot of effort to do these micro moments. It doesn't take a lot of money to do these micro moments. But you having 10 to 15 advocates for your brand, especially if you're a smaller brand, is absolutely invaluable because you think about the reach that you're going to receive, you think about the content that you're going to get back from it, and the level of advocacy that you're going to have, and that's valuable. And it doesn't actually take a lot of time. And people want connection more than ever. So if you are overwhelmed by the concept of community, or you feel that you are struggling to do something big, it's not going to be about the big moments this year. And then on the flip side of that is a bunch of small moments will actually add up to big moments. And then you'll start to get the velocity to be able to do more. So this is something that I haven't really heard anybody talk about, but it's just something that I'm seeing that will definitely pop up. And maybe like the Run Club was the precursor to this. Maybe that's what's inspired it. I'm not sure what's inspired it. Or maybe it's just because we don't have the cash to sometimes bankroll these big events. But, you know, events, intimacy, and real life things and value adding are back in full force. The next one, which people listening may not want to hear, but I'm going to talk about, is the short-term death of the portfolio career. I know this is controversial because I've just had a cringe, but I'm totally okay with saying this. And this is the reason why I say it, right? Is I see brands that I work with, brands that I don't work with, reevaluate their budgets, right? And I don't necessarily mean the person who is freelancing it with intention and running your business really well. I mean the person who thinks that it's easy, right? So many people have pivoted to the concept of, I'm just going to be a freelance creator. I'm going to build a portfolio career. If you are passionate about it, it is the best thing that you can do. It's phenomenal. But if you're just in it for the quick wins, there are no quick wins. There's no quick wins point blank in this industry. It's kind of like when someone says, oh, I really want to start a business. That's what I'm going to do next year. And I'm like, well, what do you want to start? And they're like, I don't know. And my response to them is like, until it is the ultimate thing that you want to like live and like breathe and sleep, like don't do it. And this is not at all to defeat people or make people feel deflated. But, you know, when we're talking about like recession indicators or budgets changing or anything like that, it just means that people are going to be a little bit more particular with what they're investing in. But also on social media, there's a huge glamorization of being self-employed or of, you know, working project basis with companies, with brands. And it's actually really tough. I think as a whole, like, working in marketing and e-commerce, like it's champagne and razor blades. Like, I would not change my career. And I feel that I'm so lucky because I get to do my dream job every day. But what people don't see is the decade that I put in before anyone really even noticed me or before I was making the money. The other thing is also that when brands have less to spend, it means they're going to spend less on the fun. You know, I've just talked about the micro moment, and I think the micro moment is going to be because we have to be a lot smarter and a lot more savvy with everything that's coming. But when it comes to investing in team and investing in staff, you're going to see people who can't find the same level of freelance work. They're going to realize that maybe that UGC course that they bought that they thought was going to revolutionize their life actually wasn't going to get them there because it is really tough. And people are going to return to wanting to work in-house. And there's so much benefit to working in-house. I think like alone, you know, last year, it was my best year of business, but I didn't actually make more than when I worked entirely in-house. And that's because taxes are different, expenses are different, and a lot of that you can't really forecast until you're in it. So I'm not going to change that, but it means anyone's who's romanticizing it, it's going to be a very real feeling. And Caitlin Amico, I know everyone knows that, like, I think she's incredible and she's one of my favorite creators. She posted something about the, you know, reaching out to people on LinkedIn and trying to, you know, learn more about what you want to do and find work. And her big thing was like, people only want to catch up to pick your brain so many times. And when you're a little bit stressed out, like, one, you don't have a lot of brain for someone to pick, but also you can't give away your time in exchange for nothing. And I think a lot of early portfolio careers are based on that. So you have to have more than ever the right attitude, the right skill set, and also be really realistic about when you need to make the shift and maybe go in-house or, you know, change the way that you're moving in order to make yourself thrive this year. I love a lot of the like contract content creators that are coming out, and like, there's so much demand, but there's so much demand for really, really good ones. So if you are going to be average, and like, again, not a negative, but it's realistic, there's no room to be average right now because expectations are really, really high. And if you're going to charge a premium, which you kind of have to charge because of instability, then you need to be able to deliver the product. So the next thing, which I don't know that I love, like, I know I'm wearing a little bit of color today. I wouldn't say that I'm like a beige girl, but the rise of color products. So I know our Pantone color of the year was a shade of white. Look, it's pretty. I love it. I'm here for it. But I've also seen a really big shift in color cosmetics starting to boom. So, you know, blush bigger than ever. Lipstick is actually historically a really big recession indicator because people will invest in color because they want vibrancy in their life and they want a little bit of brightness, but also because maybe you can't buy a new outfit every single time you go out. So you start to buy something smaller so you still get that dopamine hit. It's kind of like the sunny angel of the beauty industry. But also, I think there's an element of the capsule wardrobe won't die from an ethical thing, but the capsule wardrobe has just become a little bit boring. Like, right now, I still want to wear chocolate brown, but I want it to have a great cut or a great silhouette, or I want polka dots, or I want something different. I want a little bit of a print. But all of the colors that are coming out on the runway, like, it's no longer beige, it's no longer minimalism, it's going into maximalism. I don't know how I'm going to handle that because I think, like, I really got over prints during my time at Petal and Pop to where, like, please do not give me a ditzy floral or a gingham. Like, I don't want to fucking touch them whatsoever. But I think that's going to be something that shifts. So when it comes to everything with your strategy, think about being more colorful. Think about adding a bit of color into your sale assets, even if you're a brand that's a little bit more pulled back and reserved, because you know what? Color stops the scroll. Think about how you can follow some of the trends. Like if you didn't jump onto the burgundy trend last year, like you definitely missed out. Like 100% you would have missed out. You need to be able to be comfortable with trying something a little bit different because people are going to be more selective about what they buy. So they want something that is a little bit more exciting because they're going to be buying less. Now, I know that I use burgundy in my podcast and I thought about, do I want to change the color? But look, it's kind of a me color. Like you'll never not see me with a lip. So why am I going to change that right now? And my lip has nothing to do with recession indicators and everything to do with the fact that I just really like a bold lip and it's a part of my personality. So the last one, and I actually crossed out the way that I wanted to phrase this. And originally I'd put it was the rise of being canceled. And I don't want to be negative, so I decided I'm not going to call it that, but it's going to be the rise of expectation. More than ever, you need to be really, really great about the quality that you're putting out. This is the quality of the content. That doesn't mean it can't be lo-fi, but it needs to be intentional. It's the quality of your product. It's the quality of your customer service and the quality of your communication. We don't have room for error, especially error that we can control, because people are going to be more particular than ever. And also, as brands grow, they get better. So they may have a brand they've loved for the last couple of years that now has different resources. So the expectation is going to be completely different. It may be something that you're like, oh, it's fine. AI can automate all of these things. But when we're thinking about community, when we're thinking about micro moments, when we're thinking about investing in everything that we're doing, like this is a concept in retention marketing, right? Your email tools, your retargeting, that's all retention marketing. So if you are not leveling up your product and service to match, then you're doing a huge disservice to yourself. We spend so much on acquisition. There's really no room for you to basically like just drop the ball with your customers. I had a friend who purchased from quite an expensive brand, right? And this was a singular piece that was $600. And she received the wildest, just like, don't give a fuck customer service that I'd seen. So $600 piece, didn't work out. She exchanged it. She followed all of the policies and procedures to a T. Because of an automation that they had, they claimed she wasn't eligible for refund because she didn't meet their guidelines. She then was like, but I followed exec said. They then blamed a wildfire situation, which you could tell from tracking didn't actually impact what happened. Then they made another excuse about something else and like, look, the details don't actually matter. But the fact is like when someone is purchasing something, the easier that you make it for them to purchase, the faster they're going to purchase. The easier you make it for them to have a great experience, the faster they're going to repurchase in the future, right? I'm not saying make free returns, free shipping, free all of that, because ultimately it's not the world that we live in. And unfortunately, brands have created that as an expectation and it's not sustainable, right? And that's where a lot of the cash flow problems for brands are coming from, because there are non-sustainable processes in that sense. But having really great customer experience and having someone who gives a shit about emails actually is not that hard. Testing your own process to make sure that it's a good process and that your dates make sense and that your communication is clear, it's not all that hard. It's actually the bare minimum. And with digital marketing and like social media becoming bigger than ever, right? There's the difference between it being a private conversation amongst people where anyone who knows about that will probably never purchase from that brand because it's just, again, I don't want to spend $600 and not have a great experience. Alternatively, like, what if someone goes online and says and shares the experience that they've had? I understand that this isn't going to destroy your brand, but if it turns off 20 people from purchasing with your brand who are people that previously purchased from your brand, that's that little bit harder that you need to work. And I'm so big more than ever about work harder because I'm already going to work hard. One person I was speaking to actually said that they loved that their warehouse manager used to be a customer because she's incredibly passionate. And your brand and your team needs to be in love with your customer. And if they're not in love with your customer, then they're probably not the right person from your team. And I don't mean that from a performance management side. I just mean you need to care. You need to care about what you're putting out there, and you need to care about what you're doing for somebody. Okay. So to recap, my 5 trends for this year that I feel you should invest in, pay attention to, and be across are long form content, are the micro moment, and doing those little things that are actually going to make a big difference, the death of the portfolio career, or maybe a little bit of a pause on it, the rise of color, and a little bit of maximalism because we're all beige, and the rise of the expectation. So it's not to paint a picture that this year is going to be tough, but you just need to move a little bit different. And I'm so excited about the fact that I've actually really learned how to move different last year. And I think it is what completely transformed my year. And I feel really confident about the fact that we're all going to be able to do things differently this year together so that we can see the same level of growth. Thank you so much for tuning in for this first episode. And I hope that 2026 is everything that you want it to be.